talk about television licensing. It's been in the papers a lot today. Just quoting from this morning's Times, the BBC is investigating claims that enforcement officers who collect television licence fees are targeting vulnerable people who have not paid. Staff at Capita are told to catch 28 evaders every week, with bonuses of up to £15,000 a year, according to the Mail. Investigation that said they had targeted a veteran with dementia and a young mother in a woman's refuge. The BBC has ordered an investigation into the allegations and said that financial incentives were offered only for licence sales and not for prosecutions.
Wow.
Okay. I wonder if we could talk to Capita.
Yeah.
They always avoid my I've no idea why. Capita, an organisation that do all sorts of things.
What's that?
What the hell is that? It's your phone. Would you?
How did that happen?
I've no idea.
I wonder what that was. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, they won't come on, will they? It's all this
of course they won't.
Private,
But let's talk about it. I do have you. It is legal. It's a legal requirement to have a TV licence. All right.
But they don't get any bonuses for catching over 28 people.
Well, apparently they don't.
In this story,
but apparently they've got to get. They're supposedly
just for selling the licences.
Staff at Capita are told to catch 28 evaders every week, with bonuses of up to £15,000 a year, according to the Mail investigation. So somebody's not telling the truth somewhere, and it'll be interesting. But there have been times when I haven't had a television licence because I haven't had a TV.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I've had a little time off from television. Yeah.
I've experienced when I've been around someone's house, them coming round, and they are a bit. Sometimes they try things.
Right, fine. Okay. Right, let's get on to the last part of the programme talking about TV licensing, because I think, and bearing in mind that we are I'm freelance, you're not, so from time to time I do work for the BBC, and
I can work for elsewhere.
Can you?
I've got it written in.
Have you? Oh, right.
So,
okay.
if you've got any work.
Yeah. Well, you should be you can't be freelance unless you are working elsewhere.
Can't you?
You know you can't. No, you're not truly freelance unless you've got a few jobs on the go.
You're right.
Yeah, I know.
You know
I'm right.
Freelance where it comes from, don't you?
Where? Yeah, Lancer. A knight of the round table.
You hire them to do your bidding.
I'm a mercenary.
The first freelance was actually a Lancer.
I'm a broadcasting mercenary.
You are.
Yeah. Let's talk about the TV licence. It is a necessity to have a television licence at this particular moment in time. Even people who work within the BBC will tell you that they find it very hard to justify that people have to have a licence for the television, and then the money all goes to one company, which of course is the BBC,
and a bit to Channel 4,
and the licence, by the way, is not for the BBC. The licence is actually to operate a television receiver.
Yeah.
Now, whatever I say during this discussion, please remember this: it is a legal requirement to have a television licence, and I am telling everybody that they ought to have one. This discussion is about the behaviour of the people who go knocking on your door. And in the papers today, there's quite a lot of controversy and criticism of staff at Capita.
Yeah.
Now, Capita is a company that the BBC employ, or the government. I don't know, how does it work? Anyway, they're employed
by the government,
collect the television licence.
BBC,
and apparently, Capita are not available to talk to us, which is very sad. But there we are. It's up to them. And if they're listening, if the managing director of Capita is listening, 0344 499 1000 is my number. You can ring me, and I will put you to the head of the queue. Whoever you are, you can come on the air and you can have a right of reply. Apparently, the story goes that staff who go out looking for people who have not paid their television licence are told that they must catch 28 evaders every week, and they get a bonus of up to £15,000 a year. Sounds good, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Let's talk to Dan in Somerset. Hello, Dan.
Hello, good evening.
Tell me your story.
Well, quite simply, we've had periods of being legally licence-free. So that's obviously no live TV, as you've explained. And currently, my partner has a TV licence, but we get a separate threat and demand from TV licensing, obviously because one TV licence for a family home is not good enough.
Why?
Well, you tell me. It's like trying to speak to a brick wall.
And tell me your experiences. Have people come to your house?
Yeah, the only way to deal with TV licensing, they're a private company, it's Capita on behalf of the BBC, is to remove their implied right of access so they don't come on the property. Also, in my particular area, we've had problems with them, so we look for a robust community response with YouTube videos of any harassment.
Well, listen, first of all, as far as I understand it, they don't have a right to come on your property. So if television licensing official comes to your door, excuse me, I apologise.
I would give you the best advice is that you've obviously seen what Mr. Doyle has to say by the current Daily Mail news. I would suggest that basically they've got no right to come on your property, so if you want to do it, you could remove your implied right of access. Yeah. That means they cannot come on the property.
But they can't come on your property, and if a TV licensing operative comes to your door, you're quite within your right, Stan, to say, I'm sorry, if you want to come into my home, go and get a warrant.
I would agree with that. I would agree that also from what we've seen in the news, that the best policy would be to shut the door, to say nothing and not to fill in any paperwork.
I agree with you. That's exactly what you should do, because the way people get... I apologise, I got a bit of a cold. The problem is that, first of all, you must have a licence. It's a legal requirement.
If you've got a television.
If you've got a television. But there is an enormous amount of harassment, and I have... myself suffered with it, Dan, too. And what annoys me more than anything else is the threatening letters you get for some reason, because you're not on the right database quite often.
Oh, I fully agree. But what I'm trying to say to you is that the BBC are trying to spin this as one Capita manager and put Capita as their fall guy. This is direct policies of harassment from BBC Central. And also...
how can we prove that?
Well, it's if you check through their actual agreement and that, you'll see that it's under the control of the BBC.
Yeah, but they say it's not right. They say they're investigating.
Exactly. The BBC say they're investigating, that nobody should be bullied in the way that's been reported in the papers.
But then there's various YouTube videos. I can't believe that someone in the BBC, that's media organisations, incapable of looking on YouTube and seeing the various videos, which frankly are disgusting.
Yeah.
What, from your own experience, when somebody has, you have a licence, but for some reason they think you need to have more than one. Is that right?
Correct. I've literally, without giving my exact location, I live in a traditional family home. Yeah. It's literally occupied by a family, so it's not a house of multiple occupation. You could look on Street View if you had my address, and it would be abundantly clear that there's not more than one doorbell or anything that would give you an indication that it's flats or
And
HMO
are there some homes in the street that you live that are HMOs, houses of multiple occupation?
Not at all. They're either terraced or semi-detached, and quite obviously family homes.
But haven't you told them that?
It's like trying to win an argument with an idiot.
Well, I wouldn't. You see, I won't reply to those letters because I don't see why I should have to. It's too much aggravation. Yeah. And I don't have enough time. So I don't reply to the letters, and if and when the letters come, I put them in the bin. And then eventually you get a knock on the door, and so I tell the people I don't have a television, or I'd say I do have a licence, yes. And on occasions I haven't had televisions. I've said, no, I haven't got a television. And then they say, well, could we come in? And I say, absolutely not. Shut the door.
Are you lying?
Yeah.
Definitely.
By saying that.
Definitely. A couple of points. There's no other state entity that behaves like the BBC with their threats and harassment. And also, a point I'd like to make out was on the digital switch over to Freeview, which only costs you £145 a year, by the way, there was a prime time to switch over to a subscription-based service for those who wish to pay for it.
But to be fair to the BBC, they say it is not them, and this is the way Capita have behaved, and they are investigating it, and they are going to stop it.
I disagree. It's a puppet master pulling the strings. I'd also suggest that if you look on tvlicenseresistance.info, you will actually see that this is far from a one-off case of one rogue agent. It is by design, and it's the BBC that are pulling the strings of this.
Yeah. Well, the BBC are more than welcome to come on the programme and talk to us about this tonight. Dan, what's the state of play for you at the moment?
I'm waiting for my next threat letter. As I say, basically, we've got a TV licence in the household. It's a family home, and we still get the letters through the post. I would suggest, though, that if Capita and the BBC were to visit the Neighbourhood Watch area, that they're going to be stars of YouTube and removed from the premises if they do come round. So that's up to them.
Thank you very much indeed. Dan's obviously a very angry man. How do you feel about it? Have you had a threat from TV licensing, but you have a TV licence? 0344 499 1000. Give me a call whilst I deal with Mr. Ash's phone. There we are, this is a trail. Yeah. Right, OK. So, our friend Vicky is on. Hello, Vicky.
Hello.
Don't tell me, Vicky, you've been having trouble from TV licensing.
Yeah, quite badly, actually. This was like about a year and a half ago. Firstly, I want to say, so you don't have to ask me this question, I complained about both of these visits. One was upheld and the other one they just didn't comment on. So I'm going to go through, I'll do the first one first.
Go on then.
And the second one was a little bit more like, which did get upheld. Basically, my daughter answered the door to them. We legally didn't need a licence at the time, so we weren't doing anything illegal.
I'm very glad to hear it.
So anyway, we got a knock at the door. Well, I was actually at a job interview at the time. My daughter answered the door, and he said he was from TV licensing people, and did we have a licence? He claims my daughter said we didn't. My daughter had no idea whether or not we had a TV licence.
How old was your daughter at the time?
She was 18 at the time.
Right.
Was she 18? No. She was 20 at the time. Sorry.
Oh, okay. And she should have known then, Vicky, quite frankly, shouldn't she?
Really?
No, I'm teasing you, Vicky. I'm teasing
right.
you. Okay.
I thought you were being serious.
No.
Look, she doesn't take any responsibility for their utilities.
Of
so
course.
She wouldn't have known.
She's living at home with her mum.
Kids
exactly.
these days, they don't know about anything.
Kids these days, yeah. But it's basically, she had no clue. And the guy actually wrote on the form that she had said that we didn't have a TV licence, that we'd been watching TV the night before, live TV the night before, that we had a set-top box,
Have you told her not to speak to people who come to the front door in future?
Well, we had a long conversation because it gets so much worse.
Oh, right.
He lied on this form completely. Everything that she wouldn't have been able to know. There was no information that she knew about this TV licence issue that could have or should have been put on that form, because she said, can you come back when my mum is here? That's literally all she said. And the guy just filled in the form the way he wanted to fill it in. Anyway, I phoned them as soon as I got home, because I looked at the thing and I looked at the sheet of paper that he'd left, which she had refused to sign, and I said, well, this is a load of rubbish. That's not the word I use, but, I think you can imagine. So I phoned them and said, no, I'm not accepting this. She hasn't signed it, and I'm not very happy about this. So anyway, I talked to them about it, and they said, don't worry, we're not going to summon you. We'll send someone around to confirm that you don't need the licence, which they didn't do.
Right.
Next thing we knew, my daughter had been summoned to court for TV licence evasion. Yep. So I then phoned them and said, hang on a minute, I've already discussed this with you. Why are you doing this? And they said, well, because we're doing it because this is the evidence that we've got. And I said, I've already had a conversation with you about the lies that were said on that form. It's a legal document. If you want to go to court, and I can go back to the judge about fraud if you want. Anyway, they eventually, after 2 weeks of me hassling them to remove the summons, came round and checked to see whether or not we did need a TV licence, which they confirmed we didn't. However,
you'd moved it out by then, hadn't you?
But the second visit, the guy who came around to confirm we didn't need the licence was very sexually inappropriate with me, actually asked me out on a date, gave me his personal number, said, if you want some help, I'll get you some compensation, love, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And I reported that as well, because I had his telephone number written in his handwriting, they couldn't not uphold that complaint.
Yeah.
And it was awful. I mean, I had to invite this guy in by law.
No, you didn't.
You didn't actually.
No,
you didn't.
Well, the thing is, it was like that there'd be anher summons.
Yeah. Well, this is very. I mean, the stories
like
in the paper today were basically talking about a veteran who has dementia, and talking about a single mum. And sounds very much as if some people are overstepping the mark. The BBC has ordered an investigation into the allegations and said that financial incentives were offered only for licensed sales and not for prosecutions. So we'll have to wait and see. But I hope it's all sorted now.
Yeah, I mean, they basically said that they would not attend my property for the next 2 years. So if they did, I would see it as harassment, and I probably would go down a legal path with them, because each time that they come round, first time they lied, second time, but if really inappropriate.
They can't say that they wouldn't come around, because if you didn't have a TV licence, they would come around. They would be legally. No,
at that point, because they hadn't changed the laws. At that point, they didn't. There was no reason for them. They had established that the address didn't need a TV licence. We were legally, we were doing so legally, so they didn't have any reason to come round. I got a letter confirming from them that they would not attend the property for 2 years.
Gosh, okay. Well, I mean, for a broadcasting organisation, and speaking as a broadcaster, I'm upset to hear that that this needs to be sorted out, because if you're on the air doing your programme and then the public get to feel really bad about the company that you work for, it's a bit of a slap in the face, isn't it, really?
Well, yeah.
I mean, how can you, it's a bit annoying. I can't believe, and I've just looked here, do you know how much the BBC spend? How much they pay capita a year? Have you read this?
I reckon £80 million.
Well, no, not quite that much, but £58 million is what capita gets a year to collect the licence fee.
And they are employed by the BBC. It's not the government that will. I mean, it's the BBC that employ them, isn't it?
Capita's incentive scheme operates purely on licence fee sales. Blah blah blah. I said that. Capita's confirmed again that this is how it operates. Capita is thought to be paid around $58 million a year. It said that its incentive scheme applied solely to sales, and it's all very confusing. Everybody has to have a licence. But nobody has to let any of these people come into their homes unless they have a policeman with a warrant with them. Yeah. And that's it.
I did say to them after the complaints that I made, that I would not let them in again. I said if they were going to, at very least, they need to send a female enforcement officer around, otherwise I would not let them in the house again.
I wouldn't even talk to them.
Well, I was pretty disgusted. I mean, it was, first of all, harassing my daughter. I mean, she couldn't possibly have known. And then to come around and, it's one thing if you actively flirt with someone, but it's quite another if all you're trying to do is get them in and out of the house as quickly as possible after they'd already caused you stress.
What is that? What time of day do they come round?
About 1:30 in the afternoon.
What is the point? You see, the problem is that they come round during the time when most people are either out at work or busy, and the only people they capture, and the reason there was a story in the paper a few weeks ago that there are more women being jailed for this than men, and yet we are still putting people in jail for it, which seems a ridiculous situation. We could surely, if people blatantly break the law and refuse to pay their licence, then obviously they're going to have to be sanctioned in some way, but I'm sure we can find a better way than putting people in prison. And the reason more women go to prison than men is because they're the ones that are caught. And as you have demonstrated, Vicky, it's the person who opens the door and talks to the licensing operative, or whatever they call themselves, who will end up being prosecuted.
And the other thing is, I, again, fall into that same bracket, single mother.
Yeah.
And, it just seems to be that the people that they target are people that can't afford it. I mean, we stopped watching TV because it was rubbish anyway.
Quite right, too.
Mostly. But we at that point, we were just watching Netflix and YouTube.
But how could your daughter, be summoned anyway? Because it was your house. You didn't even have...
They summons the person they speak to. Yes, they do.
What if you're not even the homeowner?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
They summon the person who opens the door. Doesn't matter who you are.
Doesn't make sense. I mean, I could open the door of your house, and
you would be prosecuted.
Prosecuted for you having not a TV licence.
I actually even asked them at one point if they could transfer the summons on to me, because, I said, the guys lied on the form. I said, but if you want to summons anyone, summons me. I'm more than happy to go to court and argue this one out. In the end, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I pointed a few facts out to them and said, look, you said this, and it contradicted a letter that they had sent me. And I said, well, you can't, if you want to go to court, that's great, because you're going to get laughed out of it. And that's when they pulled the summons.
Procedural impropriety.
Sorry, say that again?
Procedural impropriety.
Well,
where did you come up with that?
Barry Siegel.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's got me out for parking tickets, yeah.
Listen, Vicky, got to go to a break. Listen, thank you for your story. The BBC, a company called Capita, who... actually, they're the ones who collect the licence fee.
Yeah, but the Beeb employ them, so,
But what do they collect it? I mean, you pay it. They don't have to come round and collect it, do they?
Yeah,
But sometimes, even though you've paid a licence, or even if you haven't got a television, sometimes people come and knock at the door. And the whole story is about the inappropriate way and the rather aggressive way that sometimes these people behave. The answer to this...
Yeah.
In my view, obviously everybody has to have a licence, and you need to have one if you have a television. The answer to this is you don't let them in. Yeah. If you've got a licence, then you can show it to them, or you can show it at the door, but don't let them in your house.
Don't even respond to them.
Well, don't respond to them.
When they talk to you, just look blankly.
Well, they'll only get in touch again. I mean, that's...
Well, then do it again. They'll never,
Although I have to say that when they've written me offensive letters, and I find them quite offensive and quite threatening... I can't be bothered to reply, because I know I've got a licence and I can't be bothered to reply. But in the end, somebody will come to your house and they will say, I'd like to see you. And the temptation always is to say, go away, slam the door in their face.
Yeah.
But, Mrs. W has always made me think that it's probably a lot easier to say, look, here's the licence. If I knew where it was, by the way... where's your licence? Can you remember?
I wouldn't slam the door. Shut it gently and go...
shut it gently.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Not today, sir. Goodbye.
Not today.
Yeah.
And not any other day.
All right. Mark's in Kent. Hello, Mark.
Hi, James. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Goodish, anyway. Goodish, yeah.
Good.
How are you, Mark? Have you got a story about TV licensing?
Yes, I've got a very long story.
Oh, my gosh. Right, let me put my feet up.
I've been involved with a resistance group to the TV licence for a fair number of years now. And we have had probably hundreds of cases come through our online forums of people that have these sort of rogue cases, like the one that you just heard from your previous caller, where people are receiving visits from the TV licensing people at their homes. TV licensing person makes up or exaggerates the statement document, which is the form that they complete when they attend. And then people have this arduous task of fighting against not just TV licensing, but the court system as well, in order to protest their innocence. And as I say, we've seen hundreds of those cases. And
why are there so... I mean, obviously, whether or not we agree with a television licence is a different discussion. But excuse me. Why are there so many people being harassed who have licences? That's what I can't understand.
I think part of the issue is that TV licensing are not just aggressive, but they're also incompetent as well. And that they have issues with their database management, such that they've got 40 records of addresses, and they've got 40 records probably of their own TV licences as well, such that they attend premises thinking that there's no licence there, when in fact there is. And certainly there have been plenty of cases like that as well.
And are these... when I've had... I mean, I was living in a block of flats once, and some chap found his way up, and he was going... I watched him go through all the corridor while he was there, knocking on the door, asking to see their licences.
Yeah.
Is that something that happens from time to time?
I have to say, I've never heard of that. Normally they're attending, they're looking for one specific address, and that address will be one that doesn't have a TV licence. I mean, I should say that...
Well, that was 40 years ago you lived in that tower block.
Oh, shut up. Shut up.
Yeah.
You've been saying throughout the programme that everyone needs a licence, and that's actually not true. You need a licence to receive TV broadcasts or use BBC iPlayer.
Right.
But there are plenty of things you can do that watching TV-type content like Netflix and Amazon.
What about ITV and Channel 4?
Hang on. No,
yeah, absolutely.
You have to have a TV licence for that. But if you have a...
Sorry, James, you don't. If you're watching commercial catch-up, then you don't need a TV licence.
So just iPlayer.
Right, let me just get this right so that I know, OK? Because I was under the impression, and I'm obviously wrong, that if you had a television receiver... then it was plugged in and plugged into the aerial, then you needed to have a television licence.
Yeah, there's an interesting tale about that, which is that the term TV receiver is not the same in the law as TV set. So a TV receiver is a TV set that's been installed to receive broadcasts or iPlayer.
Right.
Okay, that's the way the law works. So that term, TV receiver, is a special term in the law that means something quite specific. Okay, so I've got a TV. It's a TV set. It's not a TV receiver because it's not installed to receive broadcasts.
Right. When you buy a television from wherever you buy a television from, you have to give your name and address and details.
No, not anymore.
No, listen. Okay. Right.
The law for that was repealed in July 2013. So
that just tells you how old my TV is.
How embarrassing.
Never mind, James. I'm sure you can afford a new one. But
I'm not sure I can, to be honest. Anyway, go on.
The law was changed. It became pretty pointless because obviously when you went and filled in that form, TV licensing couldn't know whether you were going to go home and watch BBC One on it, or whether you were going to go home and play video games on it.
Yeah. So when I go and buy a new television eventually, because mine's not very good at the moment, I don't have to give them any information at all.
No, not anymore.
And so I could pay in cash, because I once tried to pay in cash and they refused to take it.
Well, they shouldn't have done. The law was back then that they could take payment by whatever means, but they would have to fill in the form. But also, people gave all sorts of false details on those forms anyway, so it became pretty worthless to the BBC to have that information.
But you could get done now without a television, couldn't you, if you just had an iPad? But how would they know you were watching iPlayer on it? They'd never know.
I couldn't possibly comment on that.
Yeah, they couldn't. No, but they wouldn't, would they? I mean, they did say they were going to look into your internet usage, but apparently that's,
No, there was no way that they were ever going to be able to do that.
So there's no way, actually. I mean, you shouldn't do it, obviously, but now, even if you haven't got a telly, you could be breaking the law, so there's no way they could check if you've watched iPlayer or not.
Yeah.
No, I doubt
okay.
it.
Well, listen, we've
sorry. I wanted to say...
Very quickly, I've got 30 seconds. Go on.
Okay. Basically, the BBC know all about this. I've personally written to the head of the BBC's head of TV licensing about specific cases. Around about this time last year, I went through a process of every case that had merit that came to our forum. I personally wrote to the head of revenue management at the BBC and told her all about it. And some of those cases were withdrawn at the time, which is great.
We have to go. Thank you very. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is in broadcasting terms. We finished.
Ian Lee's I've just got my. He's going to carry on a TV licence.